Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Record Rangers podcast. My name is Andy Newport. I am joined as ever by my sidekick, call you that, sidekick, partner in crime, go with that, Scott McDermott.
Partner in crime, I don't mind. Sidekicks a bit disrespectful, Andrew.
Well, whatever we want to call each other, we're both up at Des Park.
Blues Brothers.
We're both up at Des Park on Sunday afternoon to see latest attempt by Rangers to make it 3 in a bounce in the league. I think it's the first time they've done it for quite a while. Obviously responding to that Europa League loss to Roma. Scott, how did you see the performance up at Dens Park?
Performance was good, first half especially. Despite Dundee flew at the traps just the first 5 minutes, but Rangers quickly got a grip of the game and took over. Kind of away performance, as I say, in that first 45. No, you'd expect for Rangers against a team that they should be beating, obviously down at the bottom end of the table. Thought it was a lot of good individual performances. I thought as a team they looked more cohesive, more hungry, more clinical, certainly in the box. Going 2 up inside 15 minutes, I think. Obviously, Raskin gets them off to a flyer with a header for a corner. Dundee will be annoyed, I'm sure, about the defending for it. And then Mikey Moore, who I'm sure we'll talk about, who was our man of the match at the game. I thought his goal was really good. The way he came inside, followed up the play, and to just a brilliant finish. And he was unlucky not to get a second. Obviously, Rangers getting a goal chalked off for offside through no fault of his own. I think it was Mohamed Diomande that's in an offside position. So, at half time, it was arguably their best performance under Danny Rohl for 45 minutes. The second half, I thought the performance level dipped. He obviously made 3 changes at half time, and he explained his reasons for that. But you don't have to agree with him. I thought it was too many changes at the one time, because I just thought they lost a bit of their rhythm, a bit of control in the game. I thought the quality level dipped, but they never really looked like conceding, which is obviously a bonus for them. They get another clean sheet, and then Gassama finishes it off at the end with a really good goal. So, look, all in all, although I'm saying the performance level dipped a bit in the second half, 3-0 away from home in the Scottish Premiership, a clean sheet. You can't complain with that, even against a team like Dundee, with all due respect, because we saw the problems that they caused Celtic up there recently. So it could have been another banana skin for Rangers, but I think, as I say, overall, Danny Rohl will be delighted. What do you think?
I mean, I know what you're saying about Danny Rohl and his explanation for why he made those 3 changes. I think he was saying that he really wanted them to keep on that front foot, and I can kind of see where it came from, because I remember saying to you just before half time, obviously they'd had, I think, a second goal for Mikey Moore chopped off, or it turned out it was Mohamed Diomande was sort of pulled up by VAR for obscuring the goalkeeper's view in an offside position, just as he makes a save from Danilo, and obviously Moore falls up and scores. And I felt after that, they didn't get the decision for that third goal. They dropped their levels a bit. You could see the last sort of 5 minutes just before half time, Dundee got a wee bit more joy. They had a couple of set pieces round about the box, came to nothing, but I think the warning signs were there. That again, this is, we've seen it time and time again this season. This is a team, a squad that they play in patches. They don't consistently go for the jugular. They'll play in spells. They'll have peaks and troughs throughout games. And I think Danny Rohl, to be fair to him, sensed that towards the end of the first half and thought, right, I need to maybe just send a wee message, a wee kick up the backside, that if you're not going to keep your levels, your intensity levels for the duration, then you'll be off. Yeah. But as you say, I don't think it helped the fluency. I don't think it helped them maintain or rediscover the tempo they've been playing at. I think the guys coming in, Asgard, Barron and Chermiti, I think it took them too long to get up to the speed of the game. And it was only really the last 10 minutes that you saw Rangers sort of really reassert themselves. I mean, of course, they were always, they're never under any real danger of losing the game or dropping points. But it became a bit of a scrap.
Right. That's the problem when you make the changes. I agree with you. It was kind of dipping towards the end of the first half. But I just think, first of all, I think as players, if you've played 45 minutes away from home, you've won 2-0, should have been 3, you've dominated. I just think almost to give them a wee boost, you need to say, right, lads, on you go, same again. Even if it's only for 55 minutes to an hour before you make the changes. And also, if you're going to make the changes, you've hit the nail on the head. That's fine if the changes improve the team and the changes come in and do pick up the speed of the game and go for the jugular and go and get that third goal early. The problem was, if you thought it was dipping just before half-time, when they made the changes, it was even worse at the start of the second half. There was just they were laboured. It was lethargic. As I say, Sharmiti came on, offered very little up front. Majowski had offered very little as well, by the way, in the first half. But Sharmiti the same. Asgard, I mean, I know just for speaking to fans, I think Asgard is frustrating the life out of people just because he's full of nice touches and neat and tidy footwork, but there's very little end product. He looks as if he's playing his own game rather than for the team. And look, Connor Barron came in and did what he did, did what he does in the middle of the park, but
safe. It's very safe, isn't he? Compared to Diamante, who at least now and again, he's a player that frustrates the life out of fans, but does have that defence splitting or a line breaking pass in him in the way that Barron really doesn't ever seem to show.
No, I think you're right.
I mean, just what you're saying there about the strikers, especially just before we move on to Mikey Moore, who you're right we need to discuss. But I mean, I kind of get the sense with Sharmiti, they've obviously spent this huge sum on him, and it feels like he's not showing much right now. There's some raw attributes there, and raw, I think, is definitely the adjective to put on him. But I think I've kind of had a sense that, they're trying to play him into form. They're just trying to keep him going, get him. You all know, especially centre forwards, you're so reliant on finding a rhythm, and once you find that rhythm, then you'll show your best stuff. And I kind of get the impression, to be fair to him, they've spent this money on him. You can't be throwing him in here and there and expecting him to just catch fire. They have to give him the minutes in the park. But for me, it was an odd one having. I mean, I know he missed 2 huge chances against Roma, but I think you saw his best all-round performance against that. And I know that's not saying much, especially for a guy who you've signed for £8 million. But if you're talking about giving the lad a chance, I think you saw his best showing yet. It would have been there. I would have thought it'd been fair to him then to give him another run out at Dundee. But then, obviously, they bring in Majowski, who again has been in and out of the team. You only give him 45 minutes, and then you're throwing Sharmiti back in. It just feels a bit bitty in that sense. These guys, is it fair on them just to be giving them, 45 minutes in there?
I think Danny Rohl would argue that he's given them all an opportunity. That's the thing. He's given Sharmiti, Majowski, and Danilo, who was so far out the picture. He's given them all an opportunity to play. He's given them all minutes. You could argue if some of them had enough minutes, maybe not. But in terms of pick Majowski and Sunday, Majowski is the experienced striker of the 2 new ones that came in. He's a seasoned international. He's got SPFL experience. He's clearly a more natural finisher and goal scorer than Sharmiti. So you can understand Danny Rohl going to Dens Park and thinking, no, I need Majowski, but he has to be producing more. I mean, he's producing so little, and you can argue about the style Rangers play and is he getting enough? Is it different because when he was at Aberdeen, he had loads of space to run in behind, and he's not got that at Rangers. I get all of those arguments, but by the same token, we were sitting at the game 20 minutes in. I think James Tavernier fired a ball up to him that me or you could have probably controlled and took it in and laid it off. And it just bounced off him. Rangers lost possession. They went back to Dundee. That's just not good enough for the money that they've paid him. That's basics.
What I would say though is that I'm trying to think back of the games he's played recently, how many glaring misses he's had or even big chances he's had. And I think that might be the thing that's frustrating him, because he's not getting presented with this barrel load of chances he might have thought coming to Rangers was going to be. He doesn't. It's not like Dessers, who who obviously had these critics, but his movement off the ball was so good. He always seemed to find himself in a position, and he always would get 4 or 5 attempts at goal during the game, and that was what frustrated fans. Could maybe only take one of them, but Majowski just never seems to put himself in those positions where the ball lands. And maybe listen, I think there's no doubt they're not creating as much this season as they have been in previous years, but I don't see him being, I don't see him, imposing himself enough in the game inside the box or outside it.
The problem is, and irrespective of the reasons for it, the bottom line here is Rangers have got 3 strikers and they can't really rely on any of them for goals.
Yeah.
And Danny Rohl's trying to put a run together of winning league games. He's obviously had 3 in the bounce. They've got 2 home games next against Livingston and Falkirk, which you'd expect them not just to win, but to rack up some goals. So, on the one hand, that's a great opportunity, you think, for Majowski, Shermiti and Danilo to get in among the goals. The flip side of that is they're so off form that it could become a struggle. Games where you'd imagine they'll obviously dominate possession, but if you've no got that cutting edge in the final third, then it becomes a problem for you. And at the moment, Rangers are relying on a Raskin or a Mikey Moore or a Tavernier for right back to come up with goals, and that can't continue. Especially with the outlay that they've had in the summer on Shermiti and Majowski. So look, the 2 of them within themselves need to somehow find a bit of form. I mean, that's the reason why I was so disappointed in Shermiti's performance in the second half, because as you say, he did okay against Roma despite missing the chances, but he put himself about. The crowd, certainly at the start of the game, were I thought getting behind him because he's running in behind and his work rate and he was chasing people down and that. And I just thought on Sunday, right, Majowski's come in, done it. This is your chance. Really go on and make an impact here in the second half. But I just felt as if he treated it, rather than have that real desire within him to go and make something happen. It was as if he was waiting and hoping for something to happen, and he just kind of treated it like any other game, and he couldn't get up to the pace. His touch wasn't in. It was just really disappointing, and it's a worry for Rohl. I mean, I think we were in the press conference post match. I'm sure somebody asked him about whether they'd need a striker in the summer, and without explicitly coming out and saying I will be signing a striker, I thought his answer was pretty much, we'll certainly need to make changes in that department because this can't continue.
Well, we'll come at that in a minute, because Danny Rohl has spoken about his need to, the fact he's sort of compiling a report. I think we've been calling it the Rohl Report. So his initial findings into the squad and the strengths and where it needs strengthened, obviously, come January. But before we go to that, can we just talk about Mikey Moore? I mean, I think we all saw. I think there's always a danger of this when you get a new signing come in. You're immediately onto YouTube. You look at the highlights reel, and you fall in love with a guy based on 5 or 6, clips. And I think there was enough signs of Moore's cameos in Spurs last year when he was sort of dipped into the team under Ad Postecoglou. You think, but this boy's got the world at his feet. He's absolutely dynamite on traveling with the ball. I think a lot of fans were expecting to see signs of that, and obviously under Russell Martin's system, and we know the issues with that, how possession focused it was, and how much seemed to be the overall point of it was just to keep the ball rather than actually creating chances. But I think most people will agree that he struggled in his early weeks. But since Danny Rohl's come in, there's been a wee move inside, closer to the striker, closer to the other midfielders, just in that central channel, inside sort of left channel. I think you're really now starting to see what this kid's all about. You know, his ability to drive at players, to link up, just do 1-2s, and obviously, you know, takes his goals extremely well at the weekend. You know, really unfortunate I have a second one with the VAR decision. I mean, do you think now, you know, this is a kid that can really maybe, you know, provide that missing spark that the team has been absolutely, you know, desperate crying out for most of the season so far?
I do. I mean, listen, it's a lot to put on his young shoulders at 18 to you know, that kind of responsibility to go and kind of lead the team and create chances and score goals. But I'm so happy for Mikey Moore that he's finding a bit of form, because I genuinely felt the criticism of him during that Russell Martin tenure was really unfair on such a young boy. I mean, listen, Mikey Moore is a top player. I mean, anybody that you know, watched his kind of progression at Spurs and with England youths and that, no, you don't have that progression, and you don't do what he did down there, breaking into the Spurs team.
Just doesn't.
Exactly. I mean, no, he was electric at times down there in the wee kind of cameos that he had, so you could see he's a good player. Doesn't he turn into a bad player overnight just because he comes up the road? He came into a bad situation at Rangers where, you know, the manager was toiling from the start. The crowd were on the team's back. You know, the team weren't winning games. No, a really kind of toxic situation. You think for a young boy going on his first loan, must be really difficult to come into that and really show what you're all about. So I kind of, no, I tried to kind of stick up for him when he was getting a bit of flack at that time, because you just knew there was a player in there. And you're right, it's just taking that, you know, the change of manager and Danny Rohl just giving him a bit more, you know, instilling a bit of belief in him again, and also just, as you say, giving him that freedom. I mean, that's been the key. No, initially when Rohl changed to that kind of 3-4-2-1 system, playing Mikey Moore in one of the, you know, the positions just off the striker was key, because you could have tried him at wing back, because he's obviously naturally a wide player, but just giving him that wee bit more license to get involved in the games, you say, get close to the strikers. You were beginning to see him flourish. He came off the bench against Celtic at Hampden. I thought made a real impact, you know, running at players, going at people, you know, committing defenders and midfielders, creating chances. And then that's just kind of continued, culminating in the performance on Sunday, where, as I say, I think he was maybe on for about an hour or something, 65 minutes. I thought he was excellent. Rangers' best player, and we obviously spoke to him after the game. He's just, I think he's like a likeable wee guy, and you know, he wants to do well. He's desperate to do well at Rangers.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you, because I think it was you that asked the question to him after the game, and you're talking about just what you're saying there about coming into that sort of really difficult, almost toxic environment. And he said something like after the game that mentally this move has been incredible for him. Like, he's had to sort of man up effectively. I think that was your intro to an effect in today's paper. That, you know, he's come up a boy, but whatever happens, he's going to go back down a man. He'll have to do a lot of growing up, and the fact that he's acknowledging that this mental test is as much about becoming a top player and passing that mental test is as much about becoming a top player as whatever that you can do with the ball at your feet. I think that's encouraging, because we've seen guys in this Rangers team already this season that have admitted that mentally they found it difficult. I think Max Sallins has said something along those lines a couple of times, that he wasn't prepared for the pressure, the scrutiny that he's under. And, you know, listen, there's few clubs in the world where you do face this, but the fact that Mikey Moore seems to, when I asked him, we spoke to him after the Roma game as well, and I asked him if he'd regretted coming up here, and he's kind of looked at me as if I'd, you know, insulted his mum. I mean, it was like, what are you talking about? No, this is going to do wonders for my career. You know, this is, if I can come here and, okay, maybe the team doesn't, you know, thrive, but if he can come here and at least walk away with his head held high at the end of his year loan, and know that he's performed, know that he's did his bit, And that'll do him wonders, for him next stage of his development. Doing it again, Spurs, we know it's okay, it's maybe not the same pressure level, but that's a club that's a testing environment down there at times as well. So, I mean, I just think the fact that he is showing that willingness to embrace the peculiarities of life up in Glasgow is so refreshing, because not many players, certainly in this Rangers team, seem to be enjoying that side of things.
Yeah, and that's the key, is that he actually contributes, because look, there's an argument there to say, well, why should Rangers be developing Spurs players for the benefit of Spurs and the individual, because he will undoubtedly go back to Spurs far more rounded, as you say, be more experienced, toughened up, a better player overall. And that's true, but that's just the reality of where Rangers are in terms of trying to sign Premier League players. But the key to that is, that's fine if he actually contributes to Rangers and contributes to winning games and contributes to winning trophies, because then it'll be worth it. When you send him back to Spurs, you send him on his way again quite happily, that he's made a really significant contribution. I mean, I suppose it's similar to when Amad Diallo came up from Man United. I think if you asked him or anyone at Man U, they'll tell you that as much as he might not have played as much as he would have liked, that loan move to Rangers under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst probably really helped him. And you look at Diallo now, and
it was a wake-up call to him, because I think he realised then he has to raise his levels and raise his output.
But the difference is that when you look back at Diallo's time at Rangers, he didn't really contribute as much as he would have liked. Whereas I think Mikey Moore's different. I think he can. And I think you're right. I think he's got the mentality. He admits that it was tough at the start, but as you say, he doesn't start crying about it and want to go back to London, back to his kind of safe space. He wants to embrace it. So I think that's really encouraging. And it feels like, I don't know if you agree, but it feels like Moore and Rohl coming together is almost there's a kind of perfect match there, in terms of manager and player.
I just don't think the style fitted with Russell Martin. It was too prescribed, it was too regimented, he was stuck out in that wing, and he didn't have, as you say, that licence just to go where he saw the space. It was the whole way Rangers were playing under Russell Martin was drilled to within a millimetre on the training pitch, and if you stepped without of that, then I don't think Russell Martin would have been pleased. And I said it just didn't work. Obviously, that's why he's gone. But I think, as we well know by now, that Danny Rohl is, he's not scared to make changes, to adapt his own plan if he sees it as for the benefit of the team. And I think we're seeing early signs that that's encouraging. I mean, just to move on finally to the last point we're going to discuss is obviously this report that he's been putting together. I mean, I did a piece for the paper this morning, sort of talking about what will he think was good, what will he think was bad about the squad, and what will he think is needed. I mean, for me, I think you'll look at there's certain figures there that are coming, have stepped up a wee bit. I think you've seen it. Obviously, Raskin gets his goal at the weekend. I think the fans are entirely right to be hugely disappointed with him this season, especially when they went out their way to back him in that sort of standoff with Russell Martin. I think they would be expecting a lot more from him, but I thought you saw certainly a step or one or two levels at Dens for a spell, especially that first half. I think Jack Butland has been a welcome return to form after his difficulties last season. I think James Tavernier has been a more assertive captain I think we've ever seen him in his time at Rangers, whether it be his comments after the park, off the park. I remember speaking to him in the mix zone after the Brand game where he labelled the performance a disgrace. I'd never heard him speak that forcefully before, and I think even in the defeat to Celtic at Hampden with 10 men, it's the most I've ever seen him try and grab a game by the scruff of the neck and drive his team on and put on a real captain's performance. He's always been a guy that led by example, but just with his quality, I actually think you saw him trying to step into the game and impose himself. So I think those are the sort of things that will encourage Danny Rohl. I think the obvious things is there are so many glaring gaping holes in the squad. Left back, they need a centre back, they need some sort of midfield enforcer, and they definitely need a striker. So I mean, what do you think will be the sort of things that he'll be telling the board as he assesses his first 3 weeks in the job?
Well, I think the key thing, let's not beat about the bush. Danny Rohl will have made his mind up on certain players already. I think he's only been in just over 3 weeks. But he said he told us that's what he needs. He needs 3 weeks to kind of assess a squad. And well, it's going to be really interesting that this report, in terms of what he hands to the board, or certainly hands to the sporting director, Kevin Thelwell, because you have to imagine that there will be things in it that might not get into well, in terms of summer signings that just haven't worked out. You think of somebody just off the top of my head, I think of somebody like Joe Rothwell, for instance, who I know has missed the last couple of games, I think, through illness, but just hasn't happened for him up here. Now he's on a decent contract, he's an experienced player, but it certainly looks for the first few weeks of Danny Rohl's tenure that he's not going to have a big part to play. So in this report, does it detail why Joe Rothwell's not going to be part of it? And is there a suggestion for what they try and do with him? Do they try and offload him? Do they try and get him out on loan? So I think there'll be loads of things like that, and just flipping it. And I'm interested to know your thoughts on this, but I think if Danny Rohl's putting a report together, as he is, having looked at this squad for 3 weeks, I'm pretty certain he will say in that James Tavernier and John Souttar are two guys that he wants to keep around the place. Now, listen, fans can agree or disagree with that, but they have been key players for him. They've played nearly every game. He's relied on them. Both of them are out of contract. Souttar's a Scotland international. Tavernier's the captain. I don't know for certain, obviously I'm only surmising, but I think there's a pretty good chance that within that, Danny Rohl will be saying these are two guys I want to keep around at the club, and therefore the board or the sporting director will need to act on that. I don't know, what do you think? Do you agree with that?
Listen, I think the suggestion that the two of them will be offered new deals will divide the fan base on the basis that they both made mistakes this season. But I think you can also argue that the both of them, had it not been for the two of those guys at times this season, this would be and I'll throw Jack Butland into that picture as well, that this could be even bleaker without the performances of those two guys. And I think Souttar especially has been put under some real. I know he was at fault for the second goal against last week at Roma. Just split second took his eye off the big Ukrainian boy up front for Roma. But I think there's been so many times where he was put in really difficult positions with Russell Martin wanting to play out, and he was left exposed, and he wasn't helped by the guys around him. I think Giga at times has been an absolute bomb scare. I think the guys in midfield have been, whether it be Raskin, I think just vacating the spaces it should have been at times, chasing after
protection.
Yeah, or just the fact that the setup under Russell Martin was just ridiculous at times, where they were so wide open, and it left the back four looking silly at times. But I think the way his commitment, his ability to scramble, and I thought last season John Souttar, especially in Europe, was magnificent. So I get, he has a mistake in him now and again. I don't think the level of Rangers spending power you're going to get centre backs aren't going to have a mistake in them. I think that's just where Rangers are in the pecking order, the food chain. But I think John Souttar is, for me, listen, I know defenders fans will say he should maybe be a third choice, and maybe they're right. They should be looking to get guys in there better than him. But right now, he's the only reliable figure in that back line. I say that as a guy who you can go, he's not going to make a mistake every game. I think you can look at Giga and go, there's a mistake in him every game. I think you can look at Migoma and say, okay, at 18, 19, he's a young kid, but I still think he's learning the job. There's a mistake in him. So for me right now, it's a no-brainer. You have to, because otherwise you're looking at, you get Max Arns away, Giga away, Cornelius away, and Migoma away, back to our parent clubs. Obviously, John Souttar's out of contract. So you're looking at, if you don't take time down, you're looking at building in pretty much, and obviously James Tavernier also out of contract as well. You're looking at building an entire defence.
That's what I mean. It's not a case of me saying John Souttar, Danny Rohl want him as his main centre back. I probably agree. I think in a perfect world for Rangers, John Souttar probably would be your third choice centre back, because I think they need to get 2 permanent centre backs that are better and more reliable. But if you're looking at the overall picture, just as you've described there, if you're the manager, you're thinking, well, I need if all these guys are getting back, and most of them will be getting back because they've no cut it. If I'm Danny Rohl, I'm thinking, well, I need some people around here that I can rely on, that know what it's about. And I as you say, John Souttar might have a mistake in him, but Danny Rohl knows what he's getting from him. So
and I do think that Scottish thing, because I don't think there's enough guys in the squad who get the club, who get the requirements. And I mean, you see John Souttar coming off after defeat as it's been obviously this year, and he's one of the few that look like it actually means something to him. A lot of guys just traipse off. You know, they've maybe met a pal in the opposition team. They're talking to them. Souttar's face as he comes off the pitch every time is like thunder. It obviously hurts him. It gets to him. I think that's one of the big problems of this Rangers squad. Is that not enough people feel what the supporters are feeling, and you know. I think if you then let him go, then that's one less person who has that affinity, that unity with the supporters. So I think for me, again, it's a no-brainer, because otherwise you're going to have to go and spend money, big money, either to sign somebody or big wages to bring somebody in. So I think for me, it's an absolute sure.
I just think it's a similar story with Tavernier. Look, I've been on record at the start of this season saying I thought Rangers should have went and signed a new captain. I thought under this new era, new ownership, new manager, it was the right time. No to phase James Tavernier out, but just to start with a new captain, going in a kind of different direction. The club didn't do that. Russell Martin didn't do that, and he's now allowed it going into this kind of last year his contract, and I think most people just assume that this will be his last year, and it might well be. I mean, Tavernier's not really spoken about it himself. He's told us he's just kind of living in the here and now at the minute. But so, and as I say, in a perfect world for Rangers, you would just let his contract run out. No, it would just come to a natural end. James Tavernier would get his testimonial or his big send-off, whatever, and the club would move on and Danny Rohl would move on. I just think the situation they're in now, when the squad is so disjointed and imbalanced, and as you say, lacking real strength and leadership, I think Danny Rohl will look at it and say, if I'm going to try and build something next year, I probably need this guy around for another year, because I'm going to have new players coming in who don't know anything about the club. I'm going to need players here who know about what it's all about, who can pass on advice, who can help them. No, arguably that should have been done that summer there, and James Tavernier's work would have been done. But the squad's going to need another revamp in the summer after this season. Rohl's going to want his own another raft of players in, you would imagine. So honestly, going back to my initial point, I'd be really surprised in this report if Danny Rohl doesn't tell the board, look, these are 2 guys that I can rely on. I'm not saying they're going to be first picks every week in the squad, but they're crucial to the environment in the dressing room, and I'd like them to stay around. So can we start speaking to them about maybe staying on? Obviously, Souttar, it would need to be a bit more long term, but even if Tavernier was another year, and that's not to say Tavernier would be up for that, because who knows what his situation is in terms of how he feels about his future, his family. He's one of the big earners at Rangers. He's been there 10 years. Does he accept a 1-year deal? Does he potentially accept a wage cut at 34? Will he have other options on the table? All of that will come into it. But I'm pretty sure Danny Rohl will be looking at it thinking, well, I've got nobody better than him in the squad. So until we get somebody better, then he has to stay around. So it's going to be really interesting.
Well, we'll see how it all pans out over the next few weeks before leading up to January. John Souttar, in the meantime, has got a big game next this week in Greece, and then Tuesday in Denmark or Scotland. Hopefully get the points needed to take us to another World Cup. You're going over there, Scott, so hopefully you can come back with some good news in that front. And we will see you all again next week. You can follow everything from Ibrox, all the updates from Ibrox in the paper and online. And we thank you for joining us. See you next week.